Same as always, I'm just going to wait a couple of minutes. Coming in. All right. Yeah. So I'm still just going to wait a minute or two for people to roll on in, but I won't wait too long this time. Actually got to kind of get out of here, but still going to do my due diligence and get through this episode about base repair. Go grab a ski. All right, so kind of went back on some of the camera and lighting and sound and stuff like that, so hopefully everything is still working. It just, the internet wasn't enough to make it really functioning with the better camera quality and all that good stuff, so I just decided to go to worse camera quality and everything and make it more functioning. So today we're going to talk about bass tuning, and I'll talk about it kind of in a shop sense, but also in a practical sense. But the thing about bass tuning is I could do 20 different videos about bass tuning because the number of different bass repairs that you have to do is way greater than with any other like type of tune. So with edging, you might have to do repairs for like really rusty or bad or damaged spots off a rock. You might have to rebevel, and you might have to sharpen and or polish your edges, but really that's all you're gonna have to do with edges. Sometimes you have to do things on like the tips and tails with them, but pretty rarely. With waxing and all that kind of stuff, really simple process. With mounting, everything, really simple process. Mounting is another one that's kind of complicated, but just because there's nuances. But bass repairs are by far the most expansive type of repair on a ski. You've got everything from just really small spot P-Tex jobs to, edge replacements and stuff like that. So I'll just get right into it kind of. And as we've kind of talked about throughout this whole thing, bass repair is really the first thing you would do if you're fully tuning your ski up. So we've worked backwards, and now this is kind of the beginning of the end of it. And so your goal with your bass tune is to first and foremost repair any damage to the bass, whether that be P-Tex or metal welding or some combination of the two, or cutting out whole sheets and stuff like that. You want it to be totally flat, essentially as well as you can make it before you go into like your grinding stages. And then that goal of that is to make this thing totally flat, totally even, and to finish your last step by patterning. Super important to pattern your ski, but that's essentially what your goal here is. And so we have really expensive and really good tools in a repair shop to make this a lot simpler and a lot quicker and a lot safer. So all of the things I'm going to teach you are things that I wouldn't necessarily just do by yourself on a ski that has a repair that needs to be done the first time. As a matter of fact, with this like test ski that I've been using throughout this course, I think today I'm just going to cut out a piece of the base to show you guys. But I've already done multiple repairs on this thing just to practice different types of strategies and different practices, ways to do different things, and it was really hard. I practice when I'm trying to learn something new. I'll practice on a ski like this a couple of times before I'll touch any of your guys' skis too. So it's not just me saying that because I'm a professional and you may or may not be, but really saying that as somebody who wants you to not hurt your own equipment, but to practice and try to do this. So anyways, so what you would need for most repairs. Now I've got a huge thing over here, an entire filing cabinet. And this is all full of base repair materials of some sort. All three of these drawers On top, on the bottom, I stacked up some extra stuff that I use very frequently. So the number of tools that you can have for this is ridiculously extensive. You can go straight back to the the Middle Ages. I got a sextant kit here, full sets of knives like this. These are actually really useful, X-Actos. This is something that you actually do probably want, probably the first crucial tool. Now, I just use for most of my repairs a typical X-Acto blade, one of the rhombus shaped ones. But these ones are really nice for just cutting out different spots. And this is like a magnetic strip, so they all stick to it. So these are really nice for doing your clean cuts and everything like that. That's the first thing that you'll probably want. Now you'll want to identify what you're putting into your base. Now some people will color match and will take P-Tax and paint it and try to do stuff like that. I find that getting a good repair is pretty satisfying. And so I actually don't paint because I like for it to look like there's a repair there, that there's a scar there, remind you, but also just ski like it's a normal ski that's never been hurt. So, but identify your materials. This is P-Tex. This is also P-Tex. But there's also metal grip. Again, if you're using metal grip like this, you definitely want to have practice because it means that this is now something that is a pretty extensive process. Then, you can have massive files for huge amounts of damage like this. But for what I use mostly, a steel scraper does just fine. This is one that I have because you use steel scrapers for a lot. So you probably already have one of these if you're doing base repair. But this is another time you're really going to use it. And yeah, it's a pretty awesome material for that. So I'll just take that out of the bag right now because this is one that we would definitely need as well. And then some sort of metal brush, really important for being able to clear out that gouge. Make sure that there's absolutely nothing in it and it's completely clean before you start doing any repairs on that. Now this metal brush can take a lot of different forms, but a form that needs to take that's very important is a different form than the brushes that you use to wax your skis. The second you start getting little wax particles and stuff like that in this, you're creating bubbles in your, or you're going to create bubbles when you drip your P-Tex and stuff like that, and that's going to be really a problem. So make sure you keep most of your base repair stuff free of not only wax, but just doesn't have to be super clean or anything like that, but just keep it in a different place than you're keeping your waxing kit. My stuff's kind of all over the place, and that's totally fine, but I know where it is. And then last thing you definitely need is a lighter. Normal Bic lighter works better than almost anything. One strategy or tip, take out the child lock there. The reason for that being it'll give it a taller flame, and getting a taller flame helps you melt a little bit better without getting all of the carbon in and some of the things that you don't want. So this really nice. Honestly, I use it a lot less now that I've figured out some other practices that are really good. But yeah, a lighter for most of you guys at home is going to be what you're going to be using for like 99% of your base repair stuff. So this is kind of where it gets gruesome. I've repaired quite a few core shots in this ski already, but unfortunately I need one more. And so that's going to involve me, unfortunately, cutting this ski. So I am actually just going to get my kit. Get my blade in nice and tight. And I'm going to cut kind of a common cut that you see in a lot of this type of repair. It's just going to be a straight cut kind of underfoot. Obviously this is nothing, but you can see that this goes through pretty easily, but it's pretty dang hard actually to get all the way into this base. So let's talk about why that is. I brought out this base material before, and this is almost exactly the same thing as on your ski, and it's pretty thick. It's not a really thin layer and allows you to be able to grind it and texture it and do all those things that we want to do. But it means that when you get base damage that's actually gone down into your core, now there's a big difference between a scrape shot and actual core base damage. But if you've done that, you've moved quite fast with at least quite a bit of weight over that spot, and you've cut up and damaged this pretty bad. So I'm going to keep working at trying to kind of get this spot out here, but you can see how tough it is for me to get into this. Now with that second pass, I got into it pretty good. So I'm just going to go along, and I'm just going to cut out a section here. And when I do this, and this actually goes down to the core, it actually should just pop right out. There's epoxy, a small layer of epoxy in between this core material and the base material, or at least there very well should be. But you should still be able to pop this thing up, at least somewhat. Let me get a different razor. It's going to be real hard because, believe it or not, skis are actually pretty strong. If I can really make any sort of gouge, I'll be fine with it. I just want to have something to show you guys, and unfortunately it didn't work out in my shop this week to have something to show you guys, but it's okay. So this is an example, like if this happened to your ski, this is an example of just like a scrape or a not deep cut. And that's honestly perfectly fine. But what we're talking about is damage to the actual wood of the ski, which is quite a bit more serious than a scrape. Just trying to pick any piece of this up. Anyways, honestly, that's going to be kind of... So, unfortunately, that's going to be really difficult to do. So, I'm just going to work at it and try to talk to you guys as well as we go through this. I really want to be able to have something to show you guys this repair, but I also don't want to stab my hand and make it so that you have to go because I need to be rushed to the hospital. I don't think that Eagle Crest would be very happy with that. Anyways, I'm almost there actually. So again, first thing you want to do, so let's just do it this way. Okay. So it's really a pretty small spot here. And unfortunately I would have loved to get a spot near the edge that we're damaging. Because edge repair is probably, and actually I wonder if this might be a little easier actually getting us up by the edge here. Oh, yeah, this is working a little bit better. Bear with me, give me 1 second. I'm down in the core here now. Still trying not to stab myself, but making a lot better progress over here. It's because it's by the edge, and the material by the edge is just quite a bit, not more exposed, but a little bit easier to damage. So this is actually not super hard. Get in there. There we go. Now we got some wood showing. We got some metal showing. All sorts of nasty stuff. There we go. Let's get down even further. Sorry I'm taking so long, guys. I promise this is going to be worth it. Probably should have prepped this core shot out, but I thought that I was going to have something in the shop. But I could feel the metal starting to give, which means that you're exposing this metal edge. Here we go. There we go. All right. Okay. So this is pretty common to have a repair or a piece of damage that shows up in the shop like this. And I'm going to show you what this looks like. So right here is your shot. So I'm trying to do this on Instagram as well, which is really hard. So right here's your shot. And oftentimes shots will come back or come to you and they'll be pretty dirty. You can see this has got all sorts of weird shrapnel areas and stuff like that around it. And so the number one first thing that you want to do is you want to make sure that you're cleaning this spot. And as you clean that spot, you want to make sure that you end up getting it completely and utterly clear after you clean it. Because you want this to be an undamaged area, essentially, when you put the repair into it. So it's going to be real hard to show on Instagram. So Instagram, you're unfortunately just going to see my face. But you can go to YouTube and or Facebook right now if you want to actually see this. So what I would do now is I would actually take this, not to damage it more, but now to clean it. And you want to get all this excess plastic out of here. So you want to scrape it away until you've got a wound spot that is clean around the damage. So I would want to, because this is all scraped away here, I need to get rid of it. So now I'm just making little cuts to try to further get rid of some of this base material. There we go. And this is seriously something you need to do before you drip, regardless of whether you're doing a professional repair or just a quick repair. You really, even if you're doing this quickly, need to clean this spot out before you can do anything else. Now, I don't know why the light is just shining right on that spot. Is that a little better? Jeez Louise. Losing my marbles here. Whew. Lost my phone. Lost everything. Okay. That spot hopefully is a little bit better to see now. Anyways. So I want to clean this out. And even if you're doing this quick repair, again, you need to clean this out. Now, you can see it just broke my blade. That's how hard and how much material is in here. But, again, just keep working at it. Keep working at it. Now, the most important thing is this area along the edge here. This is all kind of cursory. This area on the edge is extremely, extremely important. And the reason for that is it's going to be doing most of the connection and most of the feeling with your ski. I don't know a really good way to say this, but if you imagine all of this just kind of glides over, but if this doesn't interact correctly with the edge, it's not really gonna work well. So I'm starting to get that out. Take a straight razor. I really like to use these to get everything flat. They're also real sharp compared to that other one. And you're repairing this, right? So you can take away as much material as you want. But you want the places where your edge is hitting to be completely exposed so that you can actually hit that metal. Now, right here is your connection point. So this is still gripping on right here. So I want to go at this connection point here and make a clean cut right there. Now, everything that's gripping on there is going to be okay. And the spot that's not gripping on is exposed. So this is not perfectly clean. And the main reason being, like, this isn't really a piece of damage that you would actually have with all these cut marks and everything in it. It's a piece of damage I just made. And so, like, this would never happen with all this crazy stuff going on in here. Let me try to get a little bit of it out. Okay. But now you can see there's a pretty big hole right there where it needs to be. So, now that that's clean, and I'm going to say right now that if I was actually doing this repair job, I would clean it more than that. I would get it totally clean and clear. But once you have it totally clean and clear, as close as you want to get, Where did I put my brush? All right, here we go. Got this brush. Make sure every piece of debris is out of this. That debris is going to cause little bubbles in your repair. It's also just going to be stuck in there, which is not good. Now that's free and clear of debris. It also lets you really see this pocketed area a lot better. You can see spots you might have missed or anything like that. So the reason why I wanted to get close to the edge here is because the process that you do for this is a little different. So I'm going to do this process, and I'm going to hopefully do it in a way that's actually slightly wrong, and so I can actually take the repair out after I'm done with it. But everything else with the process, I won't show you a bad process. I'm going to show it to you like it should be, and then hopefully just take the repair out. So the first thing with this process, because you have metal edging, is you want to scrape that metal edging. So I've got a little piece of metal showing right here, and I want to make little coarse marks along it. The reason for that is so that your metal grip has something to get into, mostly. So now that's scraped out. So it's etched out a little bit. Wow, this is really awkward. I'm like kneeling down. I'm gonna put this down here. This is super awkward. Heck yeah. All right. So now that that's totally cleared out, it's etched. So you can actually take this and clean it again. Get it totally clear. Now what you would do is use your metal grip. And base weld repair is something I'll do an entire episode on. But essentially what you need to do with this metal grip, for the most part, is use what is basically a wood burner. These tips come in and out, but this wood burner will heat up. Jesus Christ. Will heat up really, really, really hot. And when this thing heats up, you can essentially use it to melt the metal grip or the P-Tex more accurately into your vase here. And that's why I really, really, really like to use it. I think it works a lot better than dripping, but dripping is a lot more accessible at home. You'll have to bear with me. I actually haven't drip filled ski in quite a while because I use this process so much because it works so much better. And especially on metal edges. So this is the main kicker. On metal edges, you have to use that metal grip, but then afterwards, you also have to use P-Tex. And so you really just need a very small amount of that metal grip to get into that gouge to seal, and then P-Tex on top of it. And with this, that's really easy to achieve, as opposed to dripping, where kind of the size of the drip is what you get. But I'll show you the drip processing. Let me go get the metal grip that ran away from me when I'm kneeling down. Sorry that took so long. That was ridiculous. My metal grip that I cut out went into my vise, so that was awesome. Anyways, now you're totally clean. Get your metal grip, your lighter, and honestly, all you're gonna do is get this hot enough to drip it in. And because this is the metal grip, you just want one little drip, like basically right where that metal interaction is. Now what's important and what's really nice about using the welder is it's a lot better to get this metal hot. So if you're doing this well, you actually should heat up this area ever so slightly around it as well. Keeping in mind that you don't want to burn it too much, or really at all, but they say it should be hot enough where if you touch it, it does actually hurt. As I'm talking, I'm blowing this flame out. So let's just say that's hot. You would want it, so again, you could feel that it's hot. And I can. That's actually pretty hot. So now let's drip it. Get this hot. Let that get real hot, and then because I just need one little drip, I'm just gonna do it like that. Now, I didn't completely fill in the spot I needed to. The way I like to get around that is take that flat razor, push it down. Now, metal grip will dry a lot slower, I want to say, than does P-Tex. P-Tex dries almost instantly. Metal grip, or maybe they both dry really, really quickly, but one will dry a lot quicker than the other. Maybe it's metal grip that dries. So, because I have a lot of excess metal grip, and this is a good example, you can see I could just take this repair right out if I needed to. But I think it actually gripped on okay. So you can see this part is kind of coming up right here. That's what you don't want. So you just want it to be solidly sitting in there. Now, believe it or not, even just that tiny little piece right there, because it's covering up all of the exposed metal, and I double check, it's doing what you needed it to do. So that's really all you need from that. This is quite a small wound, so this is a little bit more sensitive than, or like a little less material than you would normally have. But then, all you would do is go to your P-Tex and do your P-Tex strip. Now this one, you're trying to get a little bit more, and you're trying to fill, this is kind of dirty. You're trying to fill the entire wound with P-Tex. So this is a little bit of a thicker stick, so it's going to take a minute to heat up. Let it get real hot. You can actually set a flame. Get that sucker, drip right down nicely in there. Now, this wouldn't be so dang hard if I wasn't trying to do it on camera. It should be easier for you to get those nice drips in there. There we go. Looking good. That's why you want to make sure you have a well-ventilated area anytime you're doing any ski tuning, because you're burning stuff like that. Now you can already see that that's a pretty good repair fill. That's pretty much right on the spot you needed it to be on, and only covering the spot you needed it to be on. I apparently still know how to do one. Now, if this was a bigger repair, you would do it a slightly different way from here. This was a bigger repair. From here, you would take your metal edge and you would run along the ski at your repair. Right? It makes sense. So, you take your metal edge, you got your repair, just run along, trying to get excess material out of there. The tricky thing is, when you do that whole process with the metal edge, you never want to start beyond the repair and go to it. You always want to start in the middle of the repair or on one side of the repair, but on the repair, and then scrape. Reason for that is if you scrape from the side of a repair, it's super likely that you're going to pick it up with one of your edges or one of the edges of the metal, and you're just going to lift that repair right out, and you're going to ruin all the work you just did. And it might be an indication that that wasn't a good repair, but it very well likely could be an indication that it was a fine repair, but you just accidentally pulled it out, which happens all the time. Additionally, if you don't do the repair very well, it can just come off when you're skiing. Unfortunately, this repair isn't really big enough for me to use this, but I'll show you what I like to do, which is to use a metal edge. And I just find the angle of the ski flat and just grind. And you can see that I didn't quite get enough P-Tex in there to fill all those holes. So I'm gonna go and I'm gonna try it. Now, it's really hard here to go back and to fill on top of that P-Tex. That's not a super, super great idea. It's not the worst, and it's what I'm gonna do here because I'm just showing you, but you could also take that out. It's always better to use too much in your first step than too little. Create a little bit of a mound on top of the repair, and then you can shave it off and you're okay. As opposed to what I just did, and now you have to go back and try to redo it. So I'm just gonna drip a little bit more, and hopefully it'll just kind of be cooperative. There goes my phone again. Okay. Yeah. All right. That looks real good. It looks really, really good now. Looks really good now. Just gonna let it cool for a second. It's mounded up above it, so when I shave it off, it should just level it out. After that, you're talking about, while we let this dry, after that you're talking about doing your flattening process. Now, you can home flatten with this metal edge, especially if you know how to use your true bar and other stuff like that. You can simply take a sharp metal edge and apply pressure evenly, and it'll flatten your ski out. You can see with this other piece of damage I put in there here, you can see I can flatten out that piece of damage just using this metal edge here. So you can do it that way, but really if you want to get a really flat, good ski, you're talking about throwing it onto a base grinder. And base grinder is behind me. It's kind of one of the things that I've neglected to talk about until now because it's a pretty complicated piece of equipment. But what I'm going to try to do without having to move is show you how this bad boy works. So this is your base grinder right here. And you start with it in this position. Now, what you have down there is a big sanding belt. Looks like this. And just like sanding anything else, it's got grit. So this is an 80 grit, 100, 120, 150, and then your really sheer polishers. And all you're gonna do is put one of these belts taut right there, and I'll show you. Let's see. Hopefully you can just see me from the other side, okay? Let's see. Set the gram back up here. Okay, so essentially, hopefully you can see and hear me. I'll try to. I'm literally yelling. Putting this belt on right here. Gotta make sure it's on the right direction. Okay, so now you're probably thinking, all right, well, there's a lot of things that can sand and grind back like things flat. Can I just use that? The easy answer is you can, but it won't be as good. So what this machine is going to do, I'll take my ski just because it's dry now. I'm not going to run this thing or turn it on or anything like that. But when this starts to rotate, you can essentially, and this is what it would look like if you didn't have one of these machines, you can have a belt like this and you can hand feed your ski over it and you can make your ski flat. Additionally, you can pick a spot like this spot and you can make that spot flat. And sometimes it's nice in a shop to do too. But the nice thing about this machine right here is it has a guide on it. Now this wheel is loaded with about 100 pounds of pressure on it. And when I use this machine, I feed my ski in between this wheel and the belt, and as it feeds through, it puts equal pressure on the ski, assuring that this is going to be a level ski. You can imagine there's no way that you can achieve that precision at home. It's also very easy to see when one of these machines is not functioning perfectly correctly, because it'll grind weirdly. And yeah, so that's why this machine is really, really nice when you bring it to a shop. Even if you've done your own PTEX repair and everything like that, get it grinded down so it absolutely is flat, and now you've basically got a brand new ski. But you take an 80 grit piece of sandpaper, and then you take a 100 grit piece of sandpaper, and then you take a 150 grit piece of sandpaper, and you run it over this a bunch of times, and you get your whole ski flat, and then it's just blank, and it's useless. It's sharp on one side, it's got no pattern or texture. And if I've said it once, I've said it 100 times this clinic, the most important thing is texture in your ski. And so the other half of what this machine does is it uses the same wheel up here to guide your ski, but instead of running it over a sanding belt to blank it out, you're now running it over a stone, and that stone is what puts texture inside your ski. And that stone rotates super fast as you run your ski over, and it etches that nice texture into your ski. Most people, anybody who's got anything tuned from me, has a crossing texture in it, for the most part. But if you get a factory tuned ski, a lot of times they'll have a linear structure in that. Linear structure is going to be good for drier, colder snow. We don't get any of that up here, so a crossing structure is really good for wetter snow. But either is fine. It's just a matter of kind of which you use more. So you would roll this thing back, and then the stone sits right here, and it rolls over the stone, and it puts that texture into your ski. And that's why, even if you do your own PTEX repairs and everything, really nice to bring it to a shop, and then that shop can figure things out. So let's go back to our repair here. Our good looking repair. So this repair looks pretty good. I'm gonna do the same thing I did before. Stay level to the ski. Scrape along the ski. Look at that. And remember, you're going to base grind this afterwards, so you don't have to batter too much. So you can see, I mean, you probably can't see, but there's a little ridge, and I can see where that second piece of PTEX went in. And this is by no way, shape, or form a perfect repair at all. I wouldn't give this back to a person because it was such a weird spot to start with. It was really hard to just show you guys what that repair might look like. But that is the entire process of laying PTEX. Now, if I did this correctly, it's going to be really hard to get out, which it looks like I actually did do this correctly. So it's going to be really hard to get that repair out. But I can show you just kind of how the base, the welder, I won't even worry about showing you guys base welding. If people have personal interest and want to know more about base welding, there is not really a good, I mean, there's one YouTube video that's okay about it, but there's not really a good YouTube resource. So please comment and let me know if that's something that you actually care about, because I'm more than happy to teach it. But base welding is a pretty complicated process, and so it's not something that I'm just going to kind of gloss over here. But the same things apply with it. You want to etch that metal, and then you put in that first layer of metal grip, and then you put your second layer of PTEX and your repair. Now, again, I said this is a really small repair. A lot of times you can use like a quarter of a stick of PTEX on one repair if it's a massive gouge. They do really get big, and there's no limit to how much or little you can use PTEX. It's, you know, yeah. Anyways, the factor is, though, if you have a long, narrow repair, it's really, really hard to repair in any way except for PTEX. But if you've got a spot that's somewhat circular, it's actually not super bad to repair in a different way. So there's a reason why we have this here, this base material. So you can cut out a section, and typically what you would do is we have some steel plates, and we would say, oh, your damage looks a lot like this, or it would fit into this shape, and then you would put that over your ski, and you would cut this area out, and then you would put your base here, and you would cut it out, and then if you did everything theoretically well, you now should have two spot or a piece of base and a spot that are exactly the same. And you really do need them to be exactly the same for this process to work. Because after that, all you're going to end up doing is taking some epoxy and epoxying that back onto the wood. Now, the thing about that is it's great if you have base damage but no core damage. If you have a true core shot, that needs that metal grip, that needs that P-Tex to actually go in. Say 90% of damage to the bases of your ski is just base damage. It's not an actual core shot that is gone into the wood of your core and all that good stuff. So be mindful of the difference between a core shot and just base damage, because the way you go about it is totally different. So if you do cut that, you have to have no core damage at all, because you have to have a flat piece of wood to put it on. But if you had that etched flat piece of wood, all they did in the first place to make your ski was take a little bit of epoxy, and obviously it's a special type of epoxy, but they just put it on the base of your ski and then put that base or that sheet on, that base layer on, and then they sent it to you. So yeah, that is definitely another way that you can do it. I'll tell you that that is not really something I do much of. Even for big kind of circular repairs and stuff like that, I almost always still will go with the metal grip and P-Tex route. So this thing is so heavy it always falls apart. But the other thing is, if you do have edge, like total edge shearing, you can replace that edge material as well. I talked about that very, very briefly, but again, that's going to be actual welding, is really hard. If you do a lot of repairs like this is a tool that might have made it a lot easier for me to cut out that section in the first place. This is specifically for cutting base, not killing people in medieval prisons, but probably was also used for that. But a good, again, same thing, but a more modern one, a good edged knife is also really nice to go along with your X-Acto knives and all that stuff. So yeah, so essentially after the base is level and you have a pattern put back in, you just want to make sure that you're starting this whole process and you go and edge your ski afterwards. If you've done everything by hand, you shouldn't need to edge your ski after this. If you genuinely have made everything flat, then edging your ski isn't something that you have to do. The reason why I always have to edge a ski after I make a repair on it is because when I send it through that machine, that base grinding machine, it grinds off so much material to make your ski entirely flat, like the entire ski itself, that it'll actually hit the edge. And that's what you want. When you run this thing through, you want it to be so that the edge is totally level. So actually, when you've done a good job and you have made it completely level, as you send it through, the edges are sparking the whole time. And those edges are sparking, they're grinding off just like on the edge grinder. And so, just like on the edge grinder, when you grind off the bottom of that edge, it flips it up onto the sides, so then you have to grind off the sides and then the bottom again. So I actually have to do basically 3 edgings on this to make it flat and new again. Select your bevel, make sure that's all good to go. You've already got your pattern in it, then you can do your wax, and then you've got a fully tuned ski, and everything is good to go. Now, again, I could make a really, really long video, and a lot of my early videos are a little bit longer because I'm able to fully talk about one process But these videos and these kind of clinicky videos now are getting so complicated where I'm going over quite a few processes at once, and there's just no way for me to make a 4-hour video. For all you guys watching, I personally would probably be watching the Ravens game, but you chose to watch me, so thank you very much. I hope this has been informative, and we will go over one last thing so that we can really kind of cover everything with damage on your skis. So we've gone over base, kind of how to protect your base. We've gone over how to do your edges, how to get base damage out, how to wax your ski, all sorts of other things. You really now have quite a big toolkit of things to make your skiing day better. The only other thing that a lot of people don't think about is top sheet damage. And we will do one more video next week about mounting skis. So this is not the last week, but top sheet damage is, sorry, I'm trying to show this. I want to make sure that I can see all of the comments, if there are any. Okay. Anyways, so top sheet damage is something that's actually really, really, really important. If you don't take care of top sheet damage, eventually that actually has an easier access to your core than anything else, and it has more stress on it. And so if you don't take care of top sheet damage, you can actually have a really, really big issue with your skis. So let me show you what that looks like. So this is a rental ski with about 30,000 pieces of top sheet damage on it. And epoxy just dried, actually, so that's great. And a normal top sheet piece of damage, you would be a lot more perfect than what I'm going to show you here. But because this is a rental ski, I really don't care all that much, and just want it to be functional and not pretty. So the job that I've done on this rental ski is functional and great, but it's definitely not pretty. So you can see this spot right here is totally charred out. You can see the fiberglass material underneath it. That fiberglass top sheet is what most skis are going to be made out of. You can see the fiberglass right there. You want to make sure you clean that totally out. Just like doing your bases, you can use that metal edge to completely scrape clear that area, because all you're simply going to do is tape it up, tape your edge up, put epoxy in, let it dry. And then again, with a normal person's ski, the last step you would do is, once it's dried, either use a chisel or just some sandpaper and scrape it down so that this repair is totally level and smooth, and also like has a good transition off the sides of the top sheet. You can see, I mean, there's tons of damage all over this thing. And so because of that, you really have I've done a glob job, but that's perfectly fine on a ski like this. But top sheet damage is super easy to repair yourself. You just want to make sure you're using the right epoxy. So for most stuff, hard epoxy, like a quick setting epoxy is going to be just fine. But for damage where you're trying to hold anything together, you want to use a combination of epoxies. So you would want to use a slow setting epoxy first and then your hard setting epoxy afterwards to kind of seal it in. But yeah, for damage like this, you really can use a hard set epoxy. I'll sometimes use a slow epoxy if I really want that shape to conform. But really most things will do. I'll show you what I'm talking about by holding things together. I do actually have an example ski for that, so give me one more second here. So this ski is beyond repair. I will preface this showing you this ski by saying this ski is beyond repair. But you do get some stuff like this that you can repair, and it's a decent example. So this ski, tiny little ski, has a tail that came totally up off of it. And it often happens on the tips. On a lot of like non-rental skis, obviously, you'll get impact damage here, and it'll flip the top sheet up that's pretty common as well. And that's one where you would also use the same method. But for skis like that, you can use that slow set epoxy to get it really far in there and then vise it closed with using a piece of metal to vise it closed. And if you do it in the right way, unless it's on a really, 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 really bad spot, it actually can make a pretty effective repair. This one is not. This is just totally busted, unfortunately, but it's also like a 7, 8-year-old ski. So anyway, 2011, so 9-year-old ski. Probably 8 years to us. Sorry, anyways. So this is busted out, but seriously, it's just vices, clamping. Again, this is kind of one of the reasons why I did Q&A week, because things like that, if people want to know more about like doing the exact process, definitely more than happy to go into that kind of thing too. But yeah, these ones beyond repair, normal top sheet damage, really important to take care of to preserve your ski. Moisture getting into that area, really bad. It's going to warp it. It's going to go through into your base and start warping the other side of your ski. It's gross. It's hard to repair. Sometimes it's straight up impossible to repair. And a lot of times it's on your pressure point, and so you really feel it when it does happen. So anyways, that's all about top sheet. Unless there's anything anybody else has questions about, I believe I can see the comments, and I'm not an idiot like the first time. Doesn't look like there's any comments right now. So anyways, yeah, next week is going to be about mounting skis, and I'll kind of show you a full process of doing that. I'll rush through or kind of glaze over some parts, but we'll go through mounting a ski, and I'll show you again why that's a process you really can do at home, but sometimes it's just a lot easier and a lot safer to get done at a shop. But it's really good and cool to know how to do so in the first place. So as always, thanks everybody for tuning on in. I actually kept the Instagram feed up this whole time, so thanks everybody over there too. And yeah, I'll see you guys next week, same time, same place. Thanks.